I know you're not going to talk about it because you're competing, so I won't ask you to, but I do want to do a quick roll call just to see who we have. My pen. Memorial here. Right? Castle, Tecumseh, Central, Ivy Tech, Early College, Shepherd's Law Academy, Day School, New Tech Institute, Boonville, North, Mater Dei, and Bossy, and State School. All right. Is there anybody who hasn't been here for the other information sessions? All right, well, I'm Erin Lewis. I'm administering the competition here for the university. I'll put up on the board my email information and my phone number. You can text or email at any time as you get ready. Is this your coach with you? Oh, great. Good to see you again. All right, coaching stipends. If there are coaches in the room, wanted to quickly ask you if any of you were planning on splitting your stipend with a co-coach. Just email me if you are. We'll send you some paperwork so you can obtain that. Sure, welcome. What school do we have? Right. Awesome. So I'll email you about how to get the stipend paperwork filled out. Registration, if you already know your team for your school, if you're not competing in-house against other teams, feel free to go ahead and register on the website. It's super quick. It's just about 30 seconds to a minute. But that'll help us plan. We want to get working on planning your lunches with the faculty. And a lot of you indicated what interest areas you have, either engineering or nursing, philosophy, whatever. While you're here on campus, we want to make sure you get a chance to talk to some students and professors in that area and talk about career paths. So if you get registered, the sooner I can get those scheduled. Logos, thank you very much. I actually think I have everybody who is here. And here's the last housekeeping thing, pictures. This is a big one. A dry erase board up here. I'm going to give you my cell phone number. If you have pens and ready to go. It's area code 812-573-1780. And we want to do a little surprise for you the day of the competition. So if you can text me pictures of your team while you're working and just say, hey, this is whatever high school, that would be really helpful. Just 2 or 3 photos. If you send more, I may use and may not fit. Just send us a couple as you're working on your ideas or as you're interviewing people. Have fun with it. But we want to do a little tribute to all of your work the day of the competition. And I believe that is it for housekeeping, unless there's anything else from the team, staff team who's in here. Anything we need to cover? Nope. We do have somebody from enrollment. Again, if you have any questions about the scholarship opportunities, if you didn't see the press conference, they actually announced that there are going to be additional scholarships. Would you like to maybe highlight that?
I can briefly talk about it.
That'd be great. Yeah, just to let them know.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what Dr. Davidson mentioned, but is it the second place team is going to receive additional scholarships of $5,000 per year for our students, and then third place, I believe, will get an additional scholarship of 2,500 students, is what he announced. So it's very exciting for us to be able to offer those additional scholarships to you guys, just to show you some appreciation of what you do. This is a pretty special opportunity, and we value students who love to get involved outside of the classroom with different experiential education opportunities like this. So we just wanted to say from the enrollment area, we value you and appreciate what you do, and we're willing to back that up financially too. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You got it.
And that is in addition to any scholarship amounts that you would normally obtain through the process. They are specifically for being in this competition. So instead of just the winners getting the full ride tuition, we wanted to give that out to you. So thanks again for all the interest. And if there's nothing else, it's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Drew Hiranen. Am I saying that right? No. How about you say that? Hiranen. Thank you very much. I'll keep this brief because he has his own introduction, but I do want to highlight a few things for you. He's the co-owner and executive vice president of his construction company, which is an award-winning company that's been serving this community for many years. He's also an active angel investor, and he's completed due diligence on a lot of startups. And he's also heard a ton of pitches, so he's very knowledgeable in the kind of activities that you're going to have to do prior to the competition. And the founder and organizer of Evansville Tech on Tap Meetup. You might want to talk a little bit about the startup weekends, because some of the students may stick around this community, hopefully, be a part of that someday. So, Drew, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you. Well, Aaron was so kind to ask me to speak today for a couple of reasons. One of which is I speak for free, and the good part about that is that all the money that I would normally, or the speaker normally get paid gets to go to you guys. The other good part about that is I can absolutely guarantee you that you will get your money's worth today. So we're going to start off with some introductions, and does anybody want to stand up and tell me your life story and your name? It's kind of scary. But I'm going to try to do that to you very briefly. And as you can see over the last 40 years, I've done a lot of stuff. And I'm not telling you that to impress you. I'm telling you that to impress upon you that I also am self-diagnosed with ADD. And ADD gives you some advantages and disadvantages. One advantage is you have a lot of experiences in your life, but the disadvantage is that you're seldom become an expert in anything. So I'm going to start this with a disavowal of being an expert on the subject on which I'm going to speak, but I hope I can still transfer to you some useful tips when it comes to the endeavors you face shortly. So I'm what I call a 60-90 ADD guy, and that means that I usually get about 60% sure that what I do is going to succeed before I do it, and I'm usually able to push it along about 90% before I lose interest. And that's important because impulsivity leads to actions, and actions lead to results. And I want to tell you, I know you all have good ideas, and you probably have lots of good ideas every day, but ideas aren't worth anything unless there's execution behind it. In fact, they're really nothing more than hallucinations. So I want to talk about the concept of an innovation community, because you're living in an innovation community, and you're going to be part of making this an even bigger innovation community. So let's start by talking about a guy named Brad Feld. Brad's, about 25 or so years ago, made a ton of money selling the business that he started in his college dorm room. And with that money, he and his wife moved to Boulder, Colorado, where he's made more money. But anyway, Brad's a pretty interesting guy, and he's done a couple of really cool things for Boulder. The first I'd like to highlight is the Brad Feld Memorial Bathroom that he endowed at Colorado University. And I'm showing it because I want you to read the sign. He does certainly put emphasis on addressing your ideas and embracing them, even if they come at inconvenient times. The other thing Brad did is he said to himself, why on earth is Boulder such an innovative community, and why does so much stuff happen here? And from that question came the Boulder thesis. And there are several parts of the Boulder thesis, but what's really, I think, relevant today is that he proposes that there really are two groups in any community any community that's innovating. There are leaders and there are feeders. The leadership has to come from entrepreneurs, in his mind, and I largely agree. So when you look at the feeder side, think about institutions like the University of Evansville, or like our city government or our state government, or think about large corporations. The way that organizations like that are structured is in a hierarchy, and they have to be. It's not a criticism of the organization, it's just the way that it works. But hierarchies require a good idea to flow up and down the hierarchy before action can be taken. And it creates a real disadvantage for institutions to innovate. Leaders are entrepreneurial. They don't have the same organizational hierarchy that an institution does, and therefore they have the freedom to take risks and chances and actions. Leaders a lot of times are constrained, either by money or other resources. So the ideal world is when feeders recognize the value they can bring to leaders in implementing change in the community. And Changemakers is an extraordinary example of a feeder coming to the table with their resources to support leaders that are sitting in this room. If you look at the organization of an entrepreneur or a leader, it's network. It's not hierarchical. So that allows you as a member of a network, as an entrepreneur, to take actions really without a whole lot of permission And you can take the risk that you're willing to accept, which is also very important. So when you want to change the world, when you want to change your community, your most important tool is your network. And there's no more important tool in your career or in your impact in your community than your network. We put a man on the moon one time, but we can't make it. Anyway, I'm Drew, if anybody needs to put on my waterfall. So networks may in part be managed and accessed via virtual social networking tools. But Facebook is not how you build a network. You build a network through personal interaction. Caring, honesty, respect, and responsibility are the foundations for character. And nothing will determine the strength and breadth of your network more than your character. Anybody ever heard the term perturbation? Come on. Actually, I hadn't until yesterday anyway. But it's a great term, and what it means is a small change in the physical system. And why that matters in the context of this presentation is because when you make a small change in your network, when you have a great idea followed by great action, the strength of your network will push that change out to other people in your network, which will in turn push it out to other people in their networks. So that's why a network is so critical to achieve what you're hoping to in this competition. So doing well, being connected, being respected, maybe even being wealthy, but doing well facilitates doing good. So work really hard to create your network and strengthen it. So how do you go about perturbing your network? You wondered why I came today, or why I'm telling you all this stuff. We're going to talk about the pitch. That's how you get excitement, that's how you get action in your network. That's how you perturb your network. And pitches come in three lengths typically. So you have what a lot of times is referred to as an elevator pitch. And that term, of course, means it's something that can be pitched in the time it would take to ride an elevator. Living in Evansville, that means it's a very short pitch. If you live in New York or Chicago, it's might be a little longer. But it needs to be short. Really, it's probably anywhere from 10 seconds to 60 seconds even. So the second flavor really is a group presentation or a group pitch, which is typically, in my experience, something between 5 and 15 minutes. And I don't know what your competition is going to allow, but I would expect it's in that range. And the third type of pitch is a face-to-face, which can be 5 minutes to 60 minutes. If it's really going well, it may be longer than 60 minutes. If it's not going so well, it might be less than 5 minutes. So fundamentally, you're only communicating three things in a pitch. You need to communicate the problem, you need to communicate your solution, and you need to communicate the value that's bringing to your audience. So it's very important you know your audience because the message and the value may be distinctly different. So most of my experience in pitching is from startup companies that are wanting to make money. If a startup company is pitching to their customers or their potential customers, they might be ill-advised to tell their customers how much they're going to make off the interaction with those customers. The customer doesn't really want to know that, and they might even not appreciate it too much. But if you're communicating with an investor, that's going to be very important to hear, because an investor's goal is to make money on the investment. So it is very dependent upon the audience what the value that you're going to communicate. Typically, you're going to have, especially in a group pitch, you're going to have a somewhat diverse audience. So you do your best to understand your audience and to tell your message, to be sure you cover the value proposition for each. By the end of your audience, by the end of your presentation, your pitch, your goal should be that your audience understands all three. And it doesn't matter the length of your pitch, it's just, that's the fundamental goal of it. The pitch and the romance novel connection. Did anybody see that one coming? I didn't think so. Do these covers look familiar to anybody that's ever walked through a bookstore? Everybody's noticed these? Good. Has anybody written one? Yeah, never mind. So I like to use that metaphor because I think that a romance novel really does fit with a pitch pretty well. The elevator pitch is the first blush. It is something very short, very compelling, very concise. Romance novels do that through pictures. Did anybody spend the time to read the titles? See, you didn't even go that far. So carrying that analogy or metaphor forward, the 5-minute pitch is really like the prologue to a romance novel. When you see that compelling picture, and you go over and you open the book, I'm told that there's usually a prologue in those books. And when you read that prologue, it's going to have some juicy details about the rest of the book. It's going to be easy to consume, easy to understand, and it's going to make you want to hear the whole story. When we're looking at a face-to-face pitch, 5 to 60 minutes, it's the chapters of the book, it's the body of the book. And you can't sell a book without pages, and you can't sell an idea without details. So when you get into the level of a face-to-face pitch, you need to have details shared. Does anybody recognize this business model canvas? Are you all using that at all? It's a planning tool in developing primarily startup businesses, but also the kinds of things you're doing. But its purpose is to provide details to you and to provide details for your pitch. So let's talk a little bit about the elevator pitch. Remember, you've got the problem, your solution, and the value to your audience. And you've got a very short period of time to convey it. Maybe 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds. So the absolute best elevator pitches, in my opinion, and I'm not an expert. Actually, if you'd gotten here about 30 minutes earlier, you would have had a communications class being taught here. You should have asked the professor for the real deal. But anyway, for me, it's extremely important that the elevator pitch revolve around 3 simple sentences, and they need to be written at middle school comprehension. And you might say, I'm not pitching to elementary school or middle school kids. Why does that matter? And I would tell you that our world is becoming more and more distracted. And if you don't catch the attention of your audience immediately, you're very likely to lose some or all of them to thinking about the last pitch, the next pitch, last night, or tonight. But they're not going to be thinking about yours. So it's very important to set that up immediately in order to bring them into the further elements of the pitch. So how do you get to middle school comprehension level? If you have 5th and 6th graders or 7th graders in the house, you might try pitching to them. But fortunately, there is a tool, and there are some things called the Flesch Reading Index or the Flesch-Kincaid Readability Score. And fortunately, there's a readabilityscore.com or /.com where you can cut and paste the text of your presentation, and it will in fact give you a grade level score. And if you notice the red line over here, 6th grade is easy to read, conversational English for consumers. And call them what you may, that in this case, in a pitch, your judges and your audience are your consumers. So you want to be able to convey this message at the most basic levels. While it would seem like it would be extremely easy to do, right at 5th and 6th and 7th grade levels, I would say it's going to be the biggest challenge anybody with a complex idea has to distill it into a meaningful, short pitch at that level. So let's try a little experiment. Diatophyma renale, Bailey aspis procyanosis, Macrocantharicus rudinaceus, reproductive physiology, life cycles, pathophysiology. Am I getting it? This book has the stories of all my favorite helminths, arthropods, and protozoa. It just seems like it would be better if the cover were red. It just doesn't fit on my bookshelf. And at a cost of only $50 a book, I can make it a red book. You can help. You give me a significant part of your life savings. And if I sell only 100,000 red copies of this book, I'll give you back your money. Anybody interested? Didn't think so. Okay, let's try this one. Mobile phones. Weak batteries, weak signal, expensive data. My phone that I'm going to introduce, self-charging batteries, strong signal all over the world. $10 a month buys you unlimited text, talk, and 5th generation 5G data. You can help. If you give me $100 and I succeed in getting this phone into the marketplace, I will give you this phone. You'll always have a free connection, and you'll have $5,000 a month for the rest of your life in your pocket. So, anybody want to do the book with me? Anybody interested in the phone? Okay. That worked. So the 5 minute, that would be the elevator pitch, the 15-second pitch. The 5-minute pitch keep in mind that you should have an introduction to a 5-minute pitch. Give your elevator pitch or some variation of that as the start of your 5-minute pitch. Because again, you want to get them hooked and wanting to hear the other 4 minutes and 30 seconds of what you have to say, or other 10 minutes of what you have to say. You focus on the most exciting parts of your story. You carefully limit the details. You don't want to leave out something that's compelling or really interesting. Use visual aids. You got a black book. Use stories. Humans have been using stories for all of human communication, and there still is probably no tool that's any better at conveying a message. Bottom line is, though, you want to make them buy your book. So when you get to that face-to-face pitch, and I don't know if the judges will have an opportunity to interview you individually, but if they do, that's the analogy of the face-to-face pitch here. It's the chapters of the book. And again, you can't sell the book without pages, and you can't sell your ideas without details. You've got to know your problem. You have to know it intimately. If you are making a pitch to change this community or change this world, you've got to know what the problem is, and you've got to be able to communicate that. You have to know your solution. You have to be the expert. You need to know the values that your listeners want to hear and care about. And you need to be ready for questions. And one piece of advice I would give you that I see happen frequently in presentations is people get nervous when they get asked questions. And they're nervous, one, because they think they may not be able to know the answer, and even worse, they don't know the answer. But you will always be doing a disservice to yourself if you make up an answer to a question. It is a sign of strength that you are able to admit that you don't have an answer, and it's a sign of greater strength if you have the opportunity that you take the time to research and come back and give the answer at some future point in time. Your competition may not allow that, but do not make up answers. Be the expert, be prepared. There is nothing that beats practicing a pitch. You want to be confident that you know the material, and that if you get a little bit sidetracked, you can get back on track. You will be the expert in a pitch, and just be ready to grow or go that way. So, change is not driven by great thinkers, but by great doers. You have an opportunity, and I think this will take you to the position where you will change the world. So I would be happy to answer any questions that anybody might have, or if you don't, then that means you get to leave earlier. So. Thank you. Oh, got a question? I like that.
How often, when you're practicing for a pitch, how often do you practice your pitch?
You know what? Here I am talking about how to pitch. I'm not sure I've ever done a pitch.
Okay.
But anytime I've ever given a presentation, I know there's a direct correlation between the times I've practiced it and the outcome. It depends on the length and complexity and I guess how prone you are to be impacted by nerves. But at a very minimum, I think you should have at least 3 to 5 complete cycles through it. One thing that's very helpful to me is to use this little device and to record your pitch. Because you may think you know what you said, you may think you know how you said it. You sometimes find that your memory was a little bit jaded. So actually being able to watch yourself do it over and over again helps. Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of things, and you may have mentioned this while I stepped out of the room, but are all of you familiar with Prezi? Some of you? Okay, so Prezi.com, it's free. I find it far better to watch than PowerPoint, so you may want to consider taking that out for your pitches. And to his point about practice and recording, prior to working here, I was a speechwriter and would often have to deliver that speech if my boss wasn't available. And practicing was a huge part of that. And oftentimes I didn't have a great way, at the time didn't have an iPad, I couldn't figure out how to set up my iPhone, no one was around. Practice in the mirror And this sounds weird, but just do that over and over and over. And it was the best thing that I could find to see if I was or was not delivering the speech in an effective manner. And the recording is a great idea if you can get somebody to do that for you. You'll see things that you want to change. But for something like this, if I were in your shoes and I did a lot of things kind of like this at your age, I probably would have done at least 4 or 5 full run-throughs, either to a parent, to a family member, to each other, if no one else is available, or in the mirror. So, hope that helps. Any other questions about the pitches, about what you'll experience the day of the competition?
I'll say one other thing.
Yeah, of course.
Aaron sent this note to me, and I neglected to put it in my presentation, but it's also really important, if you are aware, or can be aware, to know what the judging criteria are. If judges are doing their job, they are following a set of guidelines on how to judge and evaluate your presentation. So it's probably your clothes are not going to be part of that, but probably the content is. So be sure that you know the criteria, and Aaron sent that to me, so I know it is available. And if you don't have it yet, be sure you get it. And when you're going through your presentation, review each of those things that the judges are to be looking for, and be sure that you have it covered appropriately.
And there's a reason that identifying a problem is the first criteria listed. So when he said, know your problem intimately, that's the best thing to make sure you enjoy your experience. Because when you get those questions, you won't be freaked out at all. You'll just be enthusiastic about having an opportunity to share your knowledge. So, okay. With that, we have our fantastic members of the Social Innovation Club. Yes, another question?
What is the time frame?
You'll have 7 minutes. 7 minutes for your pitch. And then they'll have 3 minutes for Q&A. And we will heavily enforce the 7-minute rule. They may not use all of their 3 minutes, and that's okay. Once they're done, you're done, we'll bring up the next team, but the 7 minutes will be enforced. We'll have somebody in front of you that'll give you a 1-minute warning. And we'll look at time. Okay? So they're going to do just a little bit of activity. We'll probably get you out here just a little bit early, but we have gifts for you at the end of this to thank you for your patience. So turn it over to the college students. You want to hear from much more than this.
Yeah, I just have to log in and do some stuff really fast. Yeah.
I asked my
So just be a minute while they get set up.
Okay guys, so my
my name is Lauren, and I am the Vice President of Communication with the Social Innovation Club, and today I'm going to talk to you with another member, Allie, and we're going to talk to you about Presentation 101. This is more about presentation skills rather than pitching skills, but I think they're both very applicable in your situation. So
hi, like Lauren said, my name is Allie. I'm Vice President of Recruitment for the Social Innovation Club. Presentations are super important. If you know how to pitch but you don't know how to present, then you don't actually know how to pitch. So first things first, your presentation needs to have a purpose. If you go up in front of the judges and you're like, here's some stuff that we kind of thought about and we thought it was all right, they're not really going to want to endorse your idea, they're not really going to believe in you. So you need to make sure that there's a logical order to your presentation. Organize your thoughts, keep them in line, make sure that it's an easy to follow sort of order as to how your idea will, what it is, how you're going to solve a problem, and how it will be implemented.
yeah, also make sure if you're going to use any larger words or you're going to address something that maybe not everyone would be familiar with, that you do that at the beginning so that you're not just going to start talking about something that you already understand but the judges may not understand.
This is a big one. You see this, I'm sure you've all been in class and you'll see your classmates giving a presentation and they go up there with their PowerPoint and it's nothing but words. And then they just read all of those words and you're just sitting there and you're like, I'm educated, I know how to read, right? No one likes that. The judges will also not like that. So you don't want to have this huge block of text going in. You want to make sure that you have some pictures so as to keep it visually interesting. And you need to have a few keywords, so if you do forget what you're saying, you can look up, prompt yourself, and keep on going. Again, with your presentation, it's professional, so you don't want to have fade in, fade out, blurry lines, and then
The spinning text where it spins in and you can make it spin out. Probably not the best.
no, not a great idea.
So then, this is a really, really big one, especially in the Changemaker Challenge. What you'll see is you'll see a lot of good ideas in the Changemaker Challenge, and you'll see some teams that fail to make a budget and fail to put a dollar amount to their idea. It's great to have an idea, and we all, like we were saying before, ideas are great, but you need execution. And for the judges to want to give you the money to endorse that idea, or in your case, a scholarship to further your education, they're going to want to understand what it's going to take to make that idea come to life, and that is through a budget. So Excel is very helpful with this. It's a very easy way to do this. You can do it with simple formulas. If you've never worked with Excel before extensively, you can go online and there are lots of tutorials that you can use. This is probably the best way. So also assigning the dollar amounts to specific steps. If your project, say, has a fee up front, like an installation fee, or something like that, that could be something that's on your budget, and then you would say that that's a one-time fee, and then maybe if there's a yearly upkeep cost, something like that. And also have a plan for how you're going to get that money. So you've already made your budget now, but how are you going to get that money even without the Changemaker Challenge? You need to have an idea. So just anything, you may not know who you want to ask, but say you want to find an angel investor, or you want to do something like that. Just make sure you have an idea. And include it in your PowerPoint. Super, super, super important.
And make sure you come up with ideas outside of government money. When I was in high school, I didn't do the Changemaker Challenge, but I did the ultra-fascinating National Ocean Sciences Bowl. We all had to come up with management plans for how we were going to save a specific ecosystem. Lots of people said, we're going to get a grant from the government. Guess what? The government's not funding everything right now, or ever. So make sure you have some backup ideas, because that's not going to be the most reliable.
And then make sure you allow each member to shine, depending on different pitches that you'll do in your lives. This may be more or less important to let every single member speak the exact same amount. That's not exactly our point here. You just want to make sure that you're using the strengths of each member of your team. You aren't going to have the same strengths. You shouldn't have the same strengths. That's not what makes a good team. So just make sure you let each person do what they're best at, and give everyone a chance to shine in the presentation. Time management is very, 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 very essential. As Aaron said, we will cut you off. In 7 minutes, that's a very strict timeline, and you will get cut off. So
No
You
one
want-
likes being kicked off of stage.
No. It's like the Oscar speech where you start hearing the music playing and then soon they're not talking anymore because the music is louder than their voice. It's kind of like that. So make sure you get on stage quickly because once your time starts, you don't want to waste a lot of time, talking to the judges just yet. Obviously, you can shake their hands. You want to be nice and you want to impress them with your professional demeanor, but you want to shake hands and move on quickly. They'll expect this from you. This is probably something they see a lot. Also, make sure the transitions between your speakers is smooth, so you're not wasting a lot of time. And then you want to focus on all the judging criteria equally. So say that you think that one is more important than the others, that's fine, but you need to realize that when they're judging you, they're going to be judging you on everything. So just make sure that you at least have satisfied every single criteria that you can. Also consider timing your slides. If you go over on one slide or if one member talks for a minute too long, that's a minute less than the rest of the team has. So you really need to think about timing these slides and making sure you understand exactly how long this is going to take you. Also, have a quick exit plan. Just in case something were to go wrong, you want to make sure that you know how to shorten that pitch. So practice makes perfect. I would say when I've pitched before, I've practiced doing, like we said before, the elevator pitch, the 5-minute pitch, and then maybe a 15-20 minute pitch. So in the Changemaker, just make sure that you might be able to shorten that if anything were to happen. That would be good. Don't panic. That's the biggest piece of advice we can give you. Don't panic on stage. If you are panicked and you're rushing, everyone else can tell that you're uncomfortable or that you're very nervous, and that's going to convey in your presentation. So.
The biggest thing it comes down to is making sure that you guys practice and practice and practice and practice before March 17th.
And then Q&A actually enhances your pitch. This is the one thing a lot of people are very scared of, getting questions and having to answer those questions, but it actually enhances your pitch a lot more than you would think. So I would say to give your pitch or give your part of the Changemaker to someone, maybe a teacher, a friend, or your parent who is completely unaffiliated with your project. And then let them ask you questions. Because you may not know what questions to anticipate because you're so deep in this project and you're so used to this project that you wouldn't think of those questions. But someone that's uninvolved would. So you can ask them and they'll be able to ask you when there's no pressure and you can figure that out.
The harder the questions they can come up with asking you, the better. When I was working on our National Sciences, Ocean Sciences project, they were like, what about the pH levels and like invasive species? And I was like, I don't know about any of these things. But then I got up there and the judges didn't ask anything nearly that hard, and that makes it much better. You'll go much smoother and much easier through the Q&A.
Also try to practice giving answers concisely because sometimes if you get caught off guard, you can talk for a really long time and you only have 3 minutes for Q&A, so you want to make sure that this is really enhancing your pitch and you don't just end up answering one question for the whole 3 minutes. So just really look for weak points in your presentation. A lot of people fall victim to thinking that their presentation is really, really good at this point. And I mean, too much questioning and too much scrutinizing of your presentation is also not good. But just make sure that you know where the weak points are and you really try to enhance those. And also make sure all team members are experts. If only one person knows a certain part of the project, that's not going to be good for you in a pitch environment. They might not ask the question to that person who knows everything. They might specifically look at you and ask the question. And if you don't have the answer, then that might be a little embarrassing because this is your project. All of you are involved, so you want to make sure that you're all experts. So now we're going to move on to our little exercise that we have for you, which involves those little pretty post-its in front of you. So we want you to write down at least 3 do's and 3 don'ts you can think of for PowerPoint. 3 things you should definitely do when using PowerPoint, and 3 things you should definitely not do when using PowerPoint. On the boards.
Now, great. I'm going to run the estimate real fast so that it shows everything there. And then I'll be back in like 15 minutes when that's done. So.
Okay, so whenever you're done, if you want to stick your little post-it on this board for your do's and then that board for your don'ts. You did the, okay. It's okay. Just put all the do's on one post-it and all the don'ts on another post-it. Sorry.
I like the conservation though.
You don't have to rewrite both of them. You can just leave one of them with all of it. Oh, doing a hat. That is a good idea. See? Innovative thinking. I love post-its and pictures. I don't know what it is about post-its.
Yeah, good luck, Kyle. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry again. I'm also missing the camera. Thank you. Thank you. We're doing fine. I don't know of anything else that we need, so we're not going to stay if we have to, or we can go if we have yeah, thank you very much. If you want to, we can go for that. Like cleaning up won't be a problem. The only problem we'll have is like getting the drinks off the table. We'll be heavy. That's the only thing I can anticipate. I mean, I think we have some. Yeah.
It's awesome. Okay, so I kind of consolidated what you guys put, which is really good. So I'm glad that we kind of got through, / you probably already have had quite a bit of experience using PowerPoint and doing presentations, so you know a lot of this stuff. So the do's, like we said before, be concise and look and act professional. I really liked that a lot of you put that. And also, this isn't super important, but I always like to do this since I'm a little like type A. And it's nice if your group kind of matches. Not like everything matches, you don't have to everything match, but like a lot of times we'll say, okay, let's wear black and white. Or let's wear like, some people, I think there was a presentation we had last semester where they were doing something with green energy. And so they all wore green. So just if it makes sense with your presentation, I think that enhances it. Is that going to win your pitch? No. But does it look nice? Yeah, it looks nice. So stay calm. That's another really important one. Pictures, super important. On the opposite of don't use too much text, you also can't use nothing. So pictures are really good. And then last, practice. Practice, practice. It makes perfect. So then with the don'ts, these are really obvious and we just went over them quite a bit. Just no too much text, not colors, not transitions, and don't go out of order. Yeah. Also, try not to use too much jargon if there is any that applies to your presentation, as the judges may not be familiar with that, and you may lose a little bit of their interest if you're using too much jargon. So if you guys have any questions, we'd be glad to answer. Most of the social innovation team, we're mostly sophomores, juniors, and seniors, so we've done our fair share of presentations in college. So if you have any questions, you can let us know. If not, thanks for letting us talk to you today.
Are there any last questions about the competition itself? Yes.
Where will we be presenting that?
You'll be in Ridgeway University Center, so it's the main student center on campus, and we'll send out a campus map and probably make sure if we get enough student volunteers that somebody is kind of your guide for the day, but it's in the big Hall of Flags, I think it's called.
Will a projector or like a screen be provided?
Yes. Yes, you don't have to worry about any of that. We'll have you submit your materials, and here we have them do it on, we haven't quite worked out how yet, we're at the emailing them. Some of your presentations might be too big to email, but we're going to work with your coaches on this. But all of your stuff will be preloaded. You'll still want to bring it on a flash drive that day just in case, but we will probably have it all preloaded onto a computer like this the day of. And then we'll have a student from the university or somebody from the AV center be there to actually help with the smooth transitions to make sure you're not up there fumbling for which drive it's going to. But you'll be in that center. There's a big screen that drops down behind you, and then there's a podium that you'll have access to. But a lot of the students last fall didn't use the podium.
Will there be a clicker to transition
Yes.
slides? Okay.
Yeah, we'll be able to do that, no problem. And then we are going to have a practice session. Which day did we decide for that? Was it the 11th?
I think it was the 11th.
So March 11th, and I'll email your coaches about this as a reminder. The actual room that you'll be competing in will have available to you from a certain amount of time all the way through the evening. So you can come in, just dressed as you are, and get a feel for the place. I don't know if we'll be able to have you actually get your stuff loaded onto the computer. We'll have to talk with AV about that. But you can actually get into the room and at least practice your pitch to the room itself. We can even have some students there provide feedback. We might bring in some community judges if you want that. We'll see how much you want that formalized, but you'll be able to see the room before you actually compete. Anything else? All right, we have some gifts for you. We have, and I just use this and I love it now, these little stickers that go on your home button for your phone if you have a home button. And then, I'm not going to force you to display them, but little window decals. Just pass them out. I won't know if you don't use them. A little hard to line up, right? But